Welcome to Pages to Dialogues, your premier destination for insightful discussions on Christian books. Join me as we delve into the pages of thought-provoking Christian literature and explore the timeless truths and principles that can transform our lives. From classic devotionals to contemporary bestsellers, we'll engage in meaningful dialogues that will inspire, encourage, and challenge you to grow deeper in your faith. So, subscribe to Pages to Dialogues now and join the conversation. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you can stay updated on new episodes and exclusive content. Let's turn pages into conversations that matter.
All right, so are you ready to unlock some serious leadership wisdom?
Always ready.
Awesome, because today we're diving deep into the insights of John C. Maxwell.
Yeah, John C. Maxwell.
He's basically a household name when it comes to leadership.
He really is, and
Right.
he's written over 100 books.
It's incredible.
So many bestsellers.
Yeah.
And his focus has always been laser sharp on helping people become better leaders.
Yeah, you're right. He's so prolific.
Mm-hmm.
And what's amazing is how he connects with everyone,
Yeah.
from CEOs to
Right.
podcast hosts trying to figure things out.
It's true. His principles really do resonate across the board.
Yeah, they really do.
Yeah.
But for today's deep dive, we're zeroing in on a specific book,
Okay.
21 Laws of Leadership in the Bible.
Right.
We're basically going on a treasure hunt for timeless leadership principles hidden within those ancient stories.
And I think there are some absolute gems waiting to be discovered in there.
Oh, for sure.
Oh.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Okay.
One of the first laws Maxwell lays out is the law of the lid.
The law of the lid.
He argues that your leadership ability is like a lid on a container.
Okay.
Your potential is limited by how high that lid is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you want to achieve more, to really reach your full potential, you need to raise that lid. In other words, you need to develop your leadership skills.
Okay.
It's a simple analogy, but it really drives home the point that leadership is the key to unlocking greater levels of effectiveness.
It's not just some abstract idea either.
No.
He connects this to real-world situations.
Right.
Like you think about countries that are struggling because of poor leadership,
Mm-hmm.
or companies that are failing because they lack a strong leader at the helm.
Absolutely. He emphasizes that this need for strong leadership is everywhere.
Wow.
It's a universal truth.
It really is. Now, to illustrate the law of the lid,
Okay.
Maxwell takes us through some fascinating biblical case studies.
Okay. Love it.
Let's start with Aaron and Moses from the book of Exodus.
Okay.
So remember when Moses went up Mount Sinai to receive the Ten Commandments? Aaron, who was left in charge, ends up caving to the Israelites' demands
Oh,
and allowed them to build that golden calf.
total leadership fail.
Right. And then Moses comes back down,
Yeah.
sees what's happening.
Yeah.
He gets really mad, but he steps up and he intervenes with God on behalf of the people.
He does. He shows what strong leadership looks like even when your followers make mistakes.
Yeah, that contrast in leadership styles is so striking.
It is.
So here's a question for you listening.
Okay.
At the beginning of this story, who had more influence,
Okay.
Aaron or the people?
Mm-hmm.
And what does that tell us about their leadership?
It's a great question to ponder. It really highlights how true leadership isn't about giving in to the loudest voices,
Mm-hmm.
but about having the courage to stand firm
Uh-huh.
and make the right decisions,
Yeah.
even when they're difficult.
Okay, now let's talk about David and Goliath. It's such a classic story.
It is.
David's courage to face a giant with only a sling and stones
Right.
is pretty incredible. But what's really fascinating is how his actions inspired both the Israelite and Philistine armies.
Yeah, it wasn't just about bravery.
Uh-huh.
It was a masterclass in how leaders inspire by taking action when others are paralyzed by fear.
Yeah. What do you think would have happened if David had hesitated?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I think the outcome could have been drastically different,
Yeah.
not just for him, but for the entire nation.
And Maxwell doesn't just focus on success stories.
No.
He also delves into leadership failures,
Right.
which are just as important to learn from.
Oh, absolutely. We can learn so much from mistakes.
Yeah.
Both our own and those of others.
Take Rehoboam, for example.
Okay.
He succeeded his father Solomon,
Okay.
but chose to ignore the advice of experienced elders and ruled harshly.
Yeah.
This eventually led to the kingdom being divided.
It's a classic example of what can happen when a leader prioritizes their ego over the needs of their people.
And it stands in such stark contrast to his father's more compassionate approach.
It
really highlights that choosing pride and force over wisdom and understanding can have disastrous consequences,
Hmm.
both for the leader and for those they lead.
This is a timeless lesson for leaders in any field.
Yeah.
If you ignore wise counsel and let your ego drive your decisions, you risk alienating your team, losing their trust,
Yeah.
and ultimately failing to achieve your goals.
So thinking about Rehoboam and even Saul,
Okay.
both of whom lost the support of their people,
Mm-hmm.
what similarities and differences do you see in their leadership styles and the outcomes? How does their experience connect to the law of the lid?
Well, both Rehoboam and Saul demonstrate the dangers of failing to connect with your people on a deeper level. They both made decisions that prioritized their own desires over the needs and concerns of those they were leading. And the result in both cases was a loss of influence and ultimately a failure to achieve their goals.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see how these biblical stories, though ancients, hold up a mirror to the challenges leaders face even today.
They offer valuable insights into human nature and the dynamics of leadership that are as relevant now as they were thousands of years ago.
Now, the core concept of Maxwell's book is the law of influence,
Law of influence.
which states that leadership is fundamentally about influence. It's a simple statement,
Yeah.
but it has profound implications.
It does. It challenges the notion that leadership is automatically granted by a title or position.
Right.
True leadership, according to Maxwell, is something you earn.
Okay.
It's about the impact you have on others, the ability to inspire and motivate them to achieve a shared vision.
And he systematically dismantles common misconceptions about leadership. He emphasizes that leadership and management are distinct.
Oh, right. One inspires,
Yeah.
the other maintains.
He also points out that just because someone is an entrepreneur
Okay.
or an expert in their field doesn't automatically make them a leader.
Right.
They might be great at recognizing opportunities or possessing specialized knowledge,
Yeah.
but they might lack the people skills needed to truly influence others.
Exactly.
And he also makes it clear that being out in front doesn't equal leadership. True leaders have people intentionally following them
Yes.
because they believe in the leader's vision and trust their ability to guide them.
Yes. And to illustrate this law, Maxwell once again turns to biblical examples, showing us how the law of influence plays out in different contexts.
So let's dive into those examples in part 2 of our deep dive.
Sounds good. So picking up where we left off, let's explore how Maxwell uses some biblical figures to illustrate this law of influence.
Okay.
He points to Jacob, who had to use all his cunning and emotional intelligence to win back the support of his estranged brother Esau.
Oh, yeah. Talk about a high-stakes family reunion.
Right.
He didn't just show up expecting forgiveness.
No.
He strategically sent gifts ahead, humbled himself,
Yeah.
and even divided his family to appeal to Esau's compassion.
It's a brilliant example of understanding your audience, knowing their motivations, and tailoring your approach to connect with them on an emotional level.
It makes you wonder, had Jacob always been this good at reading people? Or did those years of scheming and surviving hone his leadership skills?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It really speaks to the law of process that Maxwell discusses later, the idea that leadership develops over time through experience.
Right.
But for now, let's stick with influence.
Okay.
Another powerful example is Paul's letter to Philemon.
Yeah.
He's trying to persuade Philemon to forgive his runaway slave Onesimus.
Right. And instead of demanding or pulling rank,
Right.
Paul skillfully appeals to their shared faith, their friendship, and even offers to personally cover any debts Onesimus incurred.
It's fascinating how Paul chose to lead with connection and empathy. He understood that to truly influence Philemon, he needed to appeal to his heart, not just his sense of obligation.
Okay, but even the most influential leaders face setbacks.
They do.
Maxwell points out that David, despite his strengths, had a tough time attracting and retaining loyal followers.
Think about his complex relationships with Jonathan and Saul.
Right.
It highlights the fact that even strong leadership needs to constantly cultivate loyalty and trust.
Yeah.
It's not a one-time thing. It's an ongoing process.
Right. And that brings us to the cautionary tale of Absalom, David's son.
Yes.
Unlike his father, who surrounded himself with wise counsel,
Right.
Absalom allowed himself to be influenced by people who fueled his ambition and ultimately led to his downfall.
It's a stark reminder of the importance of building a strong inner circle. People who will challenge you, offer different perspectives,
Right.
and help you stay grounded.
It makes you wonder, did Absalom not learn from his father's example? Or was he just blinded by his ambition?
It's a question worth considering. It highlights that leadership isn't about inheriting a position or even possessing natural talent. It's about constantly learning, growing, and surrounding yourself with the right people.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of influence
Mm-hmm.
and the people we surround ourselves with.
Right.
But what about the journey itself?
Yeah.
How does one actually become a better leader?
Well, that's where the law of process comes in.
Okay.
Maxwell emphasizes that leadership isn't a destination.
Mhm.
It's a journey of continuous learning and growth.
So it's not like you wake up one day and boom, you're a great leader.
Yeah.
It's more about constantly evolving,
Right.
refining your skills,
Mm.
and deepening your understanding of what it means to lead.
Exactly. And one of the most compelling biblical examples of this is Joseph.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, talk about a leadership roller coaster.
Seriously, from being sold into slavery by his own brothers to rising to power in Egypt,
Right.
his story is like a masterclass in resilience and adaptation.
Think about it. He had that early vision of ruling his family.
Right.
Then he's thrown into slavery, forced to lead within those constraints.
Right.
Then suddenly he's thrust into a position of authority by Pharaoh. Each stage presented unique challenges and required different leadership skills.
Yeah. And then the ultimate test.
Oh, yeah.
His brothers, the ones who betrayed him, come begging for food.
Right.
Talk about a leadership moment.
And to have his entire family resettled in Egypt under his care?
Yeah.
What an incredible leadership arc.
It really is.
It makes you think, what role did God play in shaping Joseph's leadership journey? And how does that connect to the journeys of other biblical leaders like Moses and Peter?
Okay, so we've got influence. We've got the journey of growth.
Right.
What about the practical side of leadership? How do leaders actually make things happen?
Well, that's where the law of navigation comes in.
Okay.
Maxwell uses a great analogy here.
Okay.
Anyone can steer the ship, but it takes a leader to chart the course.
I like that.
It's about having a vision, setting goals, and then developing a roadmap to achieve them.
And the biblical story of Joshua conquering the city of Ai really brings this law to life.
It does. After an initial setback, he meticulously planned a strategic ambush,
Right.
dividing his forces, coordinating their movements, and
Yeah.
ultimately securing a decisive victory.
So it really is a powerful illustration of how preparation and strategic thinking are essential for success in leadership.
Absolutely.
And it raises a great question for you listening.
Okay.
What stands out to you about Joshua's leadership in this situation? What specific actions did he take that demonstrate the law of navigation?
It's fascinating to see how this connects to another P law,
Okay.
the law of addition.
Okay.
It's not enough for leaders to simply possess skills and talents. They need to constantly add value to themselves and those they lead.
So it's about growth, contribution,
Yeah.
and making a positive impact on the world around you.
And who better to illustrate this than Jesus himself?
Right.
In Mark 10, we see James and John vying for positions of power and prestige.
Oh, yeah. They wanted to be at the right and left hand of Jesus when he came into his glory.
Very ambitious.
Right.
But Jesus, instead of indulging their desire for status, redirects their focus, teaching them that true leadership is about serving others, about adding value to their lives.
The radical shift in perspective.
It is.
From seeking personal gain to empowering those around you.
Absolutely. It flips the script and asks, what are you giving to others?
Right.
How are you making their lives better?
And Paul in Philippians 2 echoes this idea when he describes Jesus who, despite having ultimate power and authority, humbled himself to serve humanity. It's a profound example of servant leadership.
It is. It's a reminder that true greatness lies not in wielding power over others,
Right.
but in using your influence to uplift and empower them.
So think about this. What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? One of dominance or one of genuine service?
It's a question every leader should ask themselves.
Now let's talk about trust,
Okay.
the foundation of any strong leader-follower relationship.
Right.
Maxwell calls this the law of solid ground.
Law of solid ground.
And he argues that trust is like currency.
Okay.
You earn it through your actions, your decisions, and your consistency.
It's about demonstrating integrity, keeping your promises, and putting the needs of your followers and the organization above your own agenda.
Every right decision, every act of integrity adds to your trust bank, while every misstep, every broken promise depletes it.
Right.
And in Proverbs 16, we see King Solomon's wisdom extolled.
Yeah.
a righteous king. One who embodies justice and integrity is a leader who inspires trust.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that character matters.
Yeah.
That your actions speak louder than your words.
And speaking of actions speaking louder than words, what about those who preach one thing but do another?
Yes. The hypocrites.
Exactly. Like the teachers of the law and Pharisees that Jesus condemned in Matthew 23. They placed heavy burdens on people while failing to live up to those standards themselves.
That kind of blatant hypocrisy erodes trust faster than almost anything else.
So what do you think happened to the people under their leadership? And what about the leaders themselves?
Yeah.
What happens to a team or an organization when trust crumbles?
It's a recipe for disaster. When trust is broken, it's incredibly difficult to rebuild. And it can lead to a breakdown in communication, collaboration, and ultimately effectiveness.
Now, on a more positive note, Peter in his first letter offers practical advice on how to build trust as a leader.
He urges leaders to be humble,
to
care for their flock, and to cast their anxieties on God.
It's interesting how he links trust to a leader's inner state. It suggests that self-leadership is the foundation of leading others. If you're anxious, insecure, or constantly doubting yourself, it's going to impact your ability to inspire trust in others.
Absolutely. It's a good reminder that before we can effectively lead others, we need to learn how to lead ourselves.
Okay, moving on. The law of respect highlights a fascinating dynamic. People are naturally drawn to leaders who are stronger than themselves.
It's about competence character and the ability to inspire confidence.
Think about the complex relationship between Jonathan, David, and Saul. Jonathan's loyalty to David, despite his father's jealousy and rage, speaks volumes about the respect David commanded, even as a young man.
It shows that true leadership earns respect, even in the face of opposition.
And makes you wonder what would have happened to those three men if Jonathan had sided with his father instead of David.
That's an interesting question.
Then there's Daniel, an exile in Babylon, whose wisdom and integrity earned him the respect of King Belshazzar, even though the king had initially overlooked him.
It's a great example of how true leadership transcends titles and circumstances. It's about the impact you make, the value you bring, and the character you demonstrate.
Now, moving on to something a bit more intuitive. The law of intuition emphasizes the importance of trusting your gut.
Trust your gut.
It's about that inner voice, that sense of knowing that often guides us in making decisions, especially when facing complex or uncertain situations.
And Abigail in 1 Samuel 25 provides a stunning example of this. Her quick thinking and decisive action averted a disaster, saving her household from David's wrath, and potentially altering the course of history.
Wow. It's amazing how one woman's intuition and courage prevented what could have been a major tragedy.
It is.
And then there's the iconic King Solomon, faced with two women claiming the same baby. He devised a test that revealed the true mother, relying on his intuition to discern the truth.
These stories remind us that sometimes the most important insights come not from logic or analysis, but from that deeper sense of knowing within us.
And let's not forget Barnabas, who saw Paul's leadership potential even when others were blinded by his past.
His intuition paved the way for one of the most influential figures in Christian history. It makes you wonder what enabled Barnabas to see past Paul's negative reputation and recognize his potential.
Okay, so we've talked about trusting your gut. But what about the people you attract as a leader? The law of magnetism suggests that who you are is who you attract.
It's true. If you want to build a team of dedicated, talented individuals, you need to embody those qualities yourself. Think about your ideal team. What traits and qualities would they possess? Now reflect on yourself. Are you embodying those traits? It's not about what you want, it's about who you are.
And the biblical account of Joshua succeeding Moses perfectly illustrates this law.
It does. Joshua, having learned from and observed Moses' leadership for many years, naturally attracted followers who resonated with that style.
It speaks to the power of mentorship and the lasting impact great leaders can have on those who follow them. Then there's David, who surrounded himself with mighty warriors, men who reflected his courage, loyalty, and unwavering commitment.
It's a reminder that the people you attract are a reflection of your own leadership.
However, We also see a contrasting example in the story of Ahab and Jezebel.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Ahab, who was so easily swayed by his manipulative wife, Jezebel.
Exactly.
Mm.
And he ended up attracting people who enabled his destructive tendencies, leading to a downward spiral for him and his kingdom.
Mm.
And speaking of attracting the wrong kind of people, think about Nehemiah.
Okay.
When he set out to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem, he had to deal with all sorts of saboteurs and naysayers who tried to undermine his efforts.
But his unwavering commitment,
Mm-hmm.
his clear vision, and his ability to inspire others allowed him to overcome those obstacles and achieve his goal.
It shows that even when you're a strong leader, you'll still face opposition.
You will.
And it's how you handle those challenges that truly defines your leadership.
Right. Now, building on this idea of attracting the right people, Maxwell introduces the law of connection.
Ah, yes.
Yes.
Touching people's hearts before asking for their hands.
Exactly. It's about building genuine relationships, fostering trust, and demonstrating that you genuinely care about the people you lead.
And Jacob, in his preparation to face Esau, provides a masterful example of this.
He does. Remember how he humbled himself, sent gifts ahead,
Right,
and even divided his family to appeal to Esau's compassion.
It's a testament to the power of emotional intelligence and leadership.
It is.
It's not about manipulating people, but about understanding their needs, their concerns, and finding ways to connect with them on the deeper level.
And Paul, in his letter to Philemon, also demonstrates this beautifully. He appeals to their shared faith, their friendship, and even offers to personally repay any debts Onesimus incurred.
It's fascinating how he chose to lead with heart and empathy, recognizing that building that connection was key to achieving his goal. Okay, so we've talked about connecting with people.
Right.
But what about those closest to us, our inner circle?
Okay.
Maxwell's law of the inner circle highlights the profound impact our closest advisors have on our leadership.
They do. They can make us better, or they can lead us astray. It's crucial to be discerning about who we allow into that inner circle.
And David's story is a perfect example of this.
It is.
He had loyal friends like Jonathan, but also faced betrayal and manipulation from others.
Right. It's a reminder that even the greatest leaders need to be careful about who they trust and who they allow to influence their decisions.
And the contrasting choices of advisors made by David and his son Absalom really drive this point home. While David sought wise counsel, Absalom surrounded himself with people who fueled his ambition, ultimately leading to his downfall.
It highlights the importance of choosing advisors who will challenge you, offer different perspectives, and help you stay grounded.
And in a surprising twist, we see a positive example of the inner circle in the story of Jethro, Moses' father-in-law.
Oh, yes. He recognized that Moses was burning himself out trying to do everything himself.
And he offered wise advice, suggesting a delegation structure that revolutionized Moses' leadership.
It did.
Allowing him to be more effective and less stressed.
It's interesting how Moses, who was known for his humility, was open to receiving feedback and advice, even from someone outside his usual circle. It shows that great leaders are always willing to learn and grow no matter where the wisdom comes from.
Okay, so building on this idea of seeking wise counsel, let's talk about empowering others.
Okay.
Maxwell's law of empowerment is all about equipping others to lead.
It is. It's about recognizing potential, providing opportunities for growth,
and trusting others to step up and take ownership.
And who better to illustrate this than Moses himself?
Right.
When he was tasked with constructing the tabernacle, he delegated authority to Bezalel and Oholiab, skilled craftsmen who led the massive project.
This act of empowerment allowed Moses to focus on his primary role as a spiritual leader while also developing the leadership potential of others.
And Jesus, known for his radical approach to leadership, also embraced this principle?
He did. He sent out his disciples, first 12, then 72, giving them authority to preach, heal, and cast out demons.
It was a bold move that demonstrated his trust in his followers and his commitment to developing their leadership abilities.
Absolutely. What's fascinating is how Jesus didn't just send them out with vague instructions. He equipped them for their mission.
He did. He instructed them to travel light, to rely on the hospitality of others, and to focus on spreading the message of the kingdom.
He gave them both the authority and the tools they needed to succeed.
And following in Jesus' footsteps, Paul became a master of empowering leaders.
Yeah.
He appointed elders in the churches he established, mentored young leaders like Timothy, and constantly encouraged others to step into their leadership potential.
What's striking about these examples is the emphasis on multiplication. It's not about the leader doing everything themselves, but about empowering others to lead.
Yeah.
Create a ripple effect of leadership that extends far beyond the individual.
This brings us to the law of reproduction,
Okay.
which emphasizes that effective leadership is about creating more leaders.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, we see a recurring theme throughout Scripture.
Right.
God raising up leaders to raise up more leaders.
Right.
It's a chain reaction of influence.
It is.
A legacy of leadership that continues to impact the world today.
Absolutely. So it's not just about you as a leader achieving great things. It's about inspiring and equipping others to do the same, creating a legacy of leadership that extends far beyond your own lifetime.
Now, building on this idea of multiplication and creating a movement, let's talk about the law of buy-in.
Okay.
Maxwell states that people follow worthy leaders who promote worthy causes. It's about winning people over to your vision before asking them to follow you.
It's not enough to just have a great idea. You need to inspire people to believe in it, to see its value, and to commit to making it a reality.
And Gideon's story, with his improbable victory over the Midianites, showcases this beautifully.
It does. He first had to overcome his own insecurities, then rally a small band of followers who believed in him before they could achieve the seemingly impossible.
It's a reminder that leadership is often about inspiring belief before demanding action.
And Nehemiah, facing opposition and sabotage while rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, also understood the importance of buy-in.
He did. He had to rally the people, address their fears, and motivate them to work together towards a shared goal. It wasn't just about bricks and mortar. It was about building unity and commitment.
And then there's the explosive growth of the early church, as described in Acts.
Oh, yeah.
The disciples, empowered by the Holy Spirit, first had to win over the hearts of the people before they could share the message of the gospel.
Right. It's a testament to the power of authentic leadership in driving a movement. People are drawn to those who believe in something bigger than themselves, who have a vision that resonates with their hearts, and who inspire them to take action.
Okay, so we've talked about buy-in,
Right.
but what about those times when things get tough?
Yeah.
When you face setbacks and challenges? The law of victory is all about that unwavering commitment to overcome obstacles and achieve success.
It's about refusing to accept defeat, about pushing forward, even when the odds are stacked against you. It's that grit and determination that separates successful leaders from those who give up when things get tough.
And Samson's story, though tragic, illustrates a powerful point about this law. Despite his flaws and setbacks, he ultimately triumphed over his enemies, bringing down the Philistine temple upon himself and those who sought to destroy him.
It's a reminder that victory can come at a great cost, but also that even in the face of personal defeat, a leader can achieve a greater good.
And Jonathan's daring attack on the Philistine outpost alongside his armor-bearer is another example of the law of victory in action. Their courage and determination, even when facing a much larger force, spurred the entire Israelite army to victory.
It's a fantastic example of how a leader's actions can inspire and embolden others, turning the tide of a seemingly hopeless situation.
Now here's a thought-provoking question for you. Jonathan didn't tell his father, King Saul, about his plan. Why do you think he chose to act independently? And what does that say about his leadership style?
It's interesting to consider the balance between taking initiative and respecting authority. Sometimes the most effective leaders are those who are willing to challenge the status quo and take risks, even when it means going against convention.
Absolutely. And then there's Jesus, who in Mark 2 heals a paralyzed man right in front of a group of skeptical religious leaders. His unwavering belief in his mission, his authority to forgive sins and heal, demonstrates the power of conviction in overcoming opposition.
He didn't let the doubts or negativity of others deter him from his purpose. He knew what he was called to do, and he did it, even when faced with resistance.
It's a powerful example of leading with conviction, even when it means challenging deeply held beliefs or going against the grain.
Now, building on this idea of unwavering commitment, let's talk about momentum.
Momentum.
The law of momentum is all about harnessing the power of forward motion.
Maxwell argues that momentum is a leader's best friend. It makes every situation seem better and amplifies a leader's effectiveness.
Right.
Think of it like a train gaining speed.
Okay.
It becomes unstoppable, able to overcome even the most formidable obstacles.
And Moses leading the Israelites through the wilderness provides a compelling example of this.
He does. His unwavering faith, his decisive leadership, and his ability to motivate his people created a momentum that carried them forward, despite the challenges and setbacks they faced along the way.
It's a great example of how a leader's vision, determination, and ability to inspire can create a sense of forward motion that propels a group toward its goal.
However, we also see the negative consequences of losing momentum in 2 Kings.
Oh, yeah. The story is King Jehoash and the missed opportunity.
Exactly. He had the chance to crush his enemies, but hesitated, striking the ground with arrows only 3 times when he could have delivered a decisive blow.
It's a cautionary tale that underscores the importance of seizing momentum when it's present.
And then there's the incredible surge of momentum experienced by the early church after Peter's powerful sermon on Pentecost.
Right. Thousands were converted. The message of the gospel spread rapidly, and a vibrant community of believers emerged.
It was an extraordinary time of growth and expansion.
It really was.
Fueled by the Holy Spirit and the boldness of the disciples.
So what do you think were the key factors that contributed to this remarkable momentum? And how does this story connect back to the law of reproduction?
It's fascinating to consider the interplay of spiritual power, effective leadership, and a message that resonated deeply with the people.
Okay, now let's talk about priorities. Maxwell's final law, the law of priorities, reminds us that busyness doesn't equal productivity. It's about focusing on the right things in the right order to achieve the greatest impact.
And Jesus, in his interaction with Martha and Mary, beautifully illustrates this principle. While Martha busies herself with preparations, Mary chooses to sit at Jesus' feet and listen to his teachings.
It's a reminder that sometimes the most important tasks are those that don't appear urgent or productive on the surface. It's about discerning what truly matters and making time for those things, even when we're feeling pulled in a million different directions.
It makes you wonder, what was the root cause of Martha's frustration? Was it simply that she felt overwhelmed with work? Or was there a deeper sense of insecurity or a need for recognition driving her actions?
It's a good question to ponder. It reminds us that our actions are often driven by deeper motivations and beliefs. And as leaders, it's important to be aware of those underlying factors, both in ourselves and in those we lead.
And the disciples, faced with a growing number of followers and increasing demands on their time, also had to learn the importance of prioritizing.
Yeah, they wisely delegated tasks, empowering others to serve, so they could focus on their primary calling, prayer, and preaching the word.
This decision reflects a deep understanding of the law of priorities. It's about recognizing that you can't do everything yourself, and that empowering others is essential for achieving the greater vision.
So as we wrap up part 2 of our deep dive into John C. Maxwell's 21 Laws of Leadership in the Bible, I'd love for you to reflect on this question. What are your top 3 priorities as a leader right now? And are you spending your time and energy in a way that aligns with those priorities?
Yeah,
it's so easy to get caught up in that whirlwind of busyness and lose sight of what truly matters.
It is.
But as we've seen throughout this deep dive into Maxwell's 21 Laws of Leadership in the Bible, effective leadership is about so much more than just checking things off a to-do list.
Right? It's about vision, it's about influence, it's about empowering others, and it's about making a lasting impact on the world around us.
It really is. So that brings us to, I think, a crucial question for you listening.
All right.
If you were to assess your own leadership on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you place yourself and why? What specific steps can you take today to start enhancing your leadership abilities?
You know, leadership isn't a destination. It's a journey.
It is.
It's about constantly learning, growing, and striving to become the best leader you can be.
And the beauty of it is you don't have to do it alone.
You don't.
You can draw inspiration from the timeless wisdom found in Scripture, from the examples of great leaders throughout history, and from the resources that are available to you today.
Absolutely. There are countless books, podcasts, courses, and mentors out there who can help you on your leadership journey.
There really are. It's all about being proactive, seeking out those resources, and committing to your own growth. So as we wrap up this deep dive into John C. Maxwell's 21 Laws of Leadership in the Bible, I want to leave you with this final thought. Leadership isn't reserved for a select few.
No.
It's a calling that resides within each of us. We all have the potential to lead, to influence, and to make a difference in the world.
Right.
It's about recognizing that potential.
Yes.
Embracing the journey. And committing to becoming the best leaders we can be.
Absolutely.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Pages to Dialogues. We hope you enjoyed our discussion and found valuable insights to apply to your life. If you did, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel, Pages to Dialogues, for more thought-provoking dialogues on Christian books. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. We'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback on this episode. Please leave a comment below, and let's continue the conversation. If you know someone who would benefit from our discussions, please share this episode with them. Your support means the world to us. Finally, if you appreciated this episode, please give us a thumbs up and a like. It helps us reach more people and continue creating content that inspires and uplifts. Thanks again for listening, and we look forward to engaging with you on our next episode of Pages to Dialogues.